There's never really anything like that, if I'm being honest, about mental health, about anything. If you're struggling, go and speak to this person or whatever. To be honest, there was no kind of support network there.
We need to think about them as people rather than a sports person.
You know, having poor mental health or going through a stage where you're struggling is not necessarily looked upon now as a weakness.
I probably would say I was depressed at a couple of times. Yeah, it was like, what am I doing here? Where do I go from here?
Mental health has always been a part of Scottish football and amongst men within our society, yet it has not always been spoken about openly within our country. Men in the nation have become better at expressing how they're truly feeling and opening up when it comes to mental health and our deepest emotions, with more and more charities and organisations becoming available to those who need it most. However, this has not always been the case within Scotland, and in particular within our beautiful game. In this documentary, I aim to explore the change in how mental health is seen, treated within the Scottish game, and what support is out there for those who are struggling mentally all over the UK. I'll be speaking to a few professional players who have played in Scotland over the last 30 years and get their insights on how their experiences with the topic of mental health within the game has been like, and how things have improved in the last few decades, as well as representatives from a few Scottish mental health organisations who will explain the work they're doing to combat the issue that is poor mental health.
I probably would say I was depressed at a couple of times. Yeah, it was like, what am I doing here? Where do I go from here?
I think it is becoming more open. People are speaking about it more.
Listen, we're a million miles away from where we were in the 90s, but we need to get, we've still got a lot of work to do. You know, how many men were quashed by the keep calm and carry on idea.
I first spoke to Dunfermline Football Club's mental health ambassador, Eddie Martin, who has worked at the club since 2016. I first asked him what his role at the club meant and what roles does he undertake, and why is his role so important within a professional football club in Scotland.
So that means I've got a care for all the staff at East End Park, where Dunfermline are based, but also for the local community and also our fan base. So we've put on different awareness sessions for the football fans and the local community, and we've also put on mental health first aid course as well. So we've had local volunteers come forward. I'm a mental health first aid instructor, and I was able to put the course on, and we had people that were that passed the course, which was great. We've got accreditation from the NHS, and because it's a place of work, the football club are employers, and they have got a duty of care to those players and to all staff within the football club. And for everybody has physical health and everybody has mental health, so the two of them are intertwined, and it's great having all the physios and all the people that can take care of the physical stuff, but then you need someone there that can have an effect on the mental side of it, that on people's minds. So for me, it's very, very important. And the good thing is, from one extreme, you could help someone through a tricky situation, or from another extreme, you could help someone through who could be suicidal. And that's the tools that's equipped for a mental health officer, that they have that skill, they have the skills that can help. And at the football club, suicide prevention, along with other mental health issues and stuff, are key.
Eddie went on to mention the mental health awareness courses that he set up for the under-20 squad at Dunfermline.
We were the first ones to put on awareness sessions for. We started with the under-20s, and that was a great success. Doing that in the stadium, giving them a sense of home and belonging, doing it in their canteen area. The subject matters that we captured was anxiety, depression. We also had an element of gambling awareness and relationship issues, and also financial issues as well. And that was great. The engagement and interaction from the under-20s was great.
This type of awareness course that had been put on by Dunfermline Football Club would have been perfect for me when I was growing up at around 15, 16, as I personally felt very anxious and not 100% when I was playing for my local amateur team. One of the main issues that I faced personally was that I felt there was a lot of negativity within the team by fellow players and not a lot of constructive encouragement, which had a negative impact on my playing, as I constantly felt under pressure, and that if I made a mistake, that would be the end of the world. I did speak to Sean Dillon, ex-Dundee United captain, about his work for Soccer World in Dundee, and about how kids should be taught how to positively play football at a young age.
It's grand, it's okay. Like, I coach kids at Soccer World in Dundee. That's my job, Monday to Friday. It's not even a job, because I love it. Like,
Good.
They're saying, look, go and make mistakes. It's all right. You don't come here. I don't, Messi and Neymar don't come here, like Benzema, Mbappe, Ronaldo. They don't come here, like, you are coming here because you want to learn, you want to have fun. So let's enjoy ourselves. Let's have a bit of fun.
I then asked former Scotland international Andy McLaren his thoughts on pressures that young kids face to make it big and to perform at 100% every week.
I remember coming to the end of my career and thinking that the phone would ring and there'd be offers, he'd go and do other stuff and stuff like that, So I speak to a lot of ex-players, guys that maybe came to the end of their career and they don't know what to do, They've not put a plan in place, so there's so many different variables to it, But young people, just let them go and enjoy the game, Just that's what football should be. It's a game, It should be enjoyed, but because there's that much money in it now, you parents kind of seeing their kids as a meal ticket as well, and putting that pressure on as well.
I wanted to delve into those who were the same age that I was when I was playing football and how difficult it was for them to try and get a professional contract at such a young age. Stephen Hetherington, now Falkirk FC captain, spoke to me about his time at Rangers as a youngster and how it felt being released at just 16.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely. Not going to lie, you shed a tear or two because you feel as if you failed. Going back to when I left school, the excitement and looking at the bigger picture and you're thinking if I'd go up there and you dream of playing for the first team, and when it gets to the point where you're told, listen, thanks, but that's where your journey stops with us, basically. Like I said, I was very upset because I felt as if I'd failed. I felt as if I'd let people down. Both the coaches who were wanting me to do well, they've obviously got to a point where they felt as if they couldn't take me any further. You feel as if you've let yourself down because of, like you said, over that 2 years of the pressure and the expectancy to do so well. You feel as if you let yourself down because you've not lived up to what your own self-belief, and then you feel as if you've probably let your family down as well because going back to 7, 8 year old, your mum and dad are taking you around all over the place, taking you to training, taking you to games, spending the money, spending the time, their evenings, taking you to training on a night and taking you to, like I said, games on a Saturday, Sunday, and giving up their weekend and the weeks for you. Basically, they invest so much time in it that you feel as if you've let them down and failed them as well.
Unfortunately, at the time, Stephen felt like there was not a lot of support for those young teenagers who had came to the end of their contract and believed that there should have been more in place to help the young boys figure out what to do next. I wanted to see what support footballers in Scotland felt like there was over the last few decades. Going back to the late 80s first, where Andy McLaren was a young and upcoming winger for Dundee United. I proposed a question of how mental health was perceived when he was a young player at the club.
Men were men, and you dealt with your own problems, and you didn't show your feelings or your emotions. That was just the way it was, Listen, that was the way it was back then. I'm not having a go or whatever, but that's a fact of the matter. That was the way it was, you just try to get on with things and block things out. And listen, I found it later in life that affected me. It affected my performances.
Andy McLaren, a tremendous left foot volley, right over the top of everyone, including Westwater.
United as a club during the 90s, as you were growing up, do you feel like there was a lot of support there for you with mental health, or just general day-to-day life at such a young age with such big responsibilities?
Honestly, no, I don't think there was. I think society as a whole, there wasn't, that there wasn't that kind of support. There wasn't that kind of, I think, awareness round about it. It was kind of Scottish trait. You're a big boy and just kind of got on with it. So there was never really any support, if I'm being honest.
And do you feel there was any pressures of any other points in your career that you felt that the pressure was getting to you mentally, like from your personal life, and it's coming into that football?
Listen, there was loads of times, lots of times that I wasn't coping with stuff in my personal life, and I was drinking too much, I was using drugs and things like that. There was a good few times but back then I didn't know how to ask for help. That was just, it sounds silly now, but I just didn't know how to say, listen, I'm struggling a bit here and I need a wee bit of, because you always worried that you would lose your place in the team, or if people know you had some sort of weakness,
they'd play on it. Or, listen, I thought it was my thoughts and my feelings, but you always worried what other people thought of you and what would people think of you if you mentioned this.
After a successful time at United, having helped them win the Scottish Cup in 1994, Andy grabbed the opportunity to play down south for Reading in the hope to progress his career. After a random drugs test, however, at Reading, the Scottish international was found to have cannabis and cocaine in the system. I spoke to him about his mental health during this period.
It was a listen, to be honest, it was a kind of cry for help. Listen, I look back and it was the best thing that ever happened to me, It was, because there was certain stages in my life where it was as if I was trying to get caught. I needed something major to happen to get everything out in the open, but I didn't know. Listen, it sounds a bit bizarre, but listen, it was times where I was doing stupid things, and I think, like, mentally, like, I was trying deliberately to sabotage things, so that I would get that help, that I didn't know how to, and failing the drug test, listen, mentally I was in a really, really bad place at that point, I came up the road after it, and it was it was big news in Scotland. It was like first night on the 6 o'clock news and the front page of every newspaper, and mentally at that point I was shot. I used to go to bed at night hoping then that I didn't wake up. That was how bad it got. I hated myself, I hated what I was doing, but I didn't know how to stop. Then when I filled that drug test, the English PFA and English FA were great with me. They got me into rehab, and it's the first time I've ever really been honest and says, listen, I'm really struggling here, I remember being at a meeting with English FA and the PFA were there, and they were asking me about my drink and my drug taking, and I just says, listen, I'm really, really struggling here. I need help, and that was the first time I'd ever said that, you know what I mean? And they got me into rehab the next day. I went into the Priory for a month, and listen, the first couple of weeks in there, I didn't like that either, because people were being honest and stuff, and talking about their feelings and stuff like that. Listen, I'm comfortable speaking about it today, but back then I wasn't, I'd never heard many people speaking the way they were speaking, and the honesty and things like that. It was, listen, I believe the day if I had never failed that drug test, I wouldn't be here today.
Andy went on to play over 150 games for a variety of clubs in Scotland and wanted to put something back into football, so he started Achieve More Scotland.
Came to the end of my football career and started that about 12 years ago, and what I wanted to do was just give kids the opportunity to play football. No pressure, just turn up. There was no cost as well, because where I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money, and football was kind of my escape route. So my thinking was that there were kids out there that have got talent that maybe can't afford £10 per week to go and play football.
The stats from Achieve More show how influential and beneficial the organisation has been, as it's seen around 3,500 young people receiving free coaching every week in schools and communities, as well as there being 48 coaching sessions each week for young kids in Scotland, which just outlines the great work that Achieve More are doing to improve kids' lives and their connection with sport and football. I then wanted to explore to see if the stigma and poor attitude towards mental health had changed from the footballing world in Scotland in the mid-2000s. I chatted again with Sean Dillon to see if there was any support from Dundee United in terms of keeping players mentally fit during his career.
Yeah, well, look, it's come out since some of the players that are in that time. I mean, it's funny you should mention this, because we had I can't remember if it was the semi-final. I think it was the semi-final, the hotel stay that we had. And the club doctor at the time, Phyllis Windsor, sat down and had a discussion with us all as a group, and we all spoke individually, some obviously more than others. And it was really interesting. It was brilliant for us, because you got to see a different side of the lads, like, lads that would normally bounce in the dressing room, and full of buzz and full of crack and all that type of stuff. All of a sudden, they're opening up and talking to you about a family issue or how they're feeling about certain things. And so I appreciate the mental health thing wasn't what it is now. It wasn't spoken about then, but to be fair to the doc, Phyllis at the time, she was, ahead of the game, I suppose, in her thinking.
This progressive meeting shows that mental health was being spoken about and people were more aware of this in 2010, as this sort of meeting or even topic was never spoken about in the men's game in the previous decades.
Trophy number 5 for United.
Once again, it's a great goal from United. John Daly, the awareness to play it inside to Margaro Gomez. The little dink, Conway, one touch, swivel, puts it away, and it's 3. United have got 3 and they've got the cup final. Surely done and dusted.
Football is a game that is loved by thousands of people all across the world. Those fans of clubs are passionate about their team, and football can make you feel as if you're on the top of the world, but can also completely have the opposite effect. I asked Sean about how he would deal with shouting and sometimes abuse from the stands, and asked how he coped with it during his playing career.
I see fans absolutely going off their heads at players. And from a playing point of view, I'm looking at it going, that guy is trained. Like, I know personally that guy is trained all week. And he's looked after himself and he's ate well and he's slept well. But right now, he's getting a hard time because the winger is, he's a fullback and the winger's giving him a hard time. Or he's not quite performing the way he did during the week. He's not beating the people, going by people the way he did, or he's not quite finishing that effort that he's worked on all week. But the fan doesn't see that. The fan sees him for 90 minutes and that's it. It's easy to be a critic. It's easy to sit on the sideline and slaughter somebody that's out there giving their best. Now, if somebody's not giving their best, by all means, you tell them. You get on to them and you can tell them you need to try harder. But if somebody's giving their best and it's not quite happening for them, what do you want them to do? If they're trying their best, and that's where the frustration comes, and the mental health issues. Like,
this level of abuse and anger faced by players in Scotland wasn't just seen at the top levels. David Sinclair played for many lower league clubs including Ayr, Livingston and Airdrie, and told me about his problems that he faced with fans and his family.
What I didn't like about it was your family's coming to watch you.
Yeah.
And they're sitting in the stand and experiencing all that, and it got to the point where my dad and brother sometimes were like, I'm not going to come and watch because they're going to end up doing something they shouldn't do. Listen, these punters pay their money to come and watch the games, voice your opinion, but they think they're entitled to say what they want. They don't realise how it can affect people.
This abuse and pressure from the fans can have a negative impact on the way footballers play during matches, as they may not want to make similar mistakes, so choose to play safely, as explained by Stephen Hetherington. Do you feel like that affects you personally in terms of if, say, there was a missed pass and then thousands of people are on your back? How do you feel when that sort of scenario happens?
That can be tough. That's probably the main thing, because then you're then not wanting to do it again, and you get, like you said, you get a bit anxious, and it's right throughout the team, and we've sensed that a lot this year. Like I said, everyone watches the game with opinions. You do it yourself, I'll do it, your mates do it, everyone does it. But it's like you said, it's the abuse afterwards. Personally, I don't see how that is going to help. If I'm watching you, Daniel, play football, and you do something, or trying to do the right thing. See if you don't execute it and you're trying to do the right thing, there's no issue with that, in my opinion. And then with the abuse that comes after that, it's like, that's not helping anybody. And I think that's what fans will always be like.
People of high profile are people too, because I think that's sort of lost in the whole, like, well, they're getting paid however much, they're doing whatever, then they must be okay, and that the common thing is the money, that'll make it okay. But yeah, it's not the case, is it?
No, absolutely not, definitely not. And I'm obviously glad you brought that up as well, because that's a great point of what people are like these days. To see these sports people, these elite sports people, men, women, yeah, they get paid healthily, and it's and good for them. We would all love to get paid healthy like that in whatever profession we choose, but at the end of the day, they're still a human being.
Stephen has played for a few Scottish clubs since moving here from his hometown Hartlepool. During his time at Alloa between 2014 and 2021, he played over 120 games for the club. I was intrigued to find out if there was any support there at the club for those needing help mentally.
Yeah, they do. That came in a good few years ago now. They had the club chaplains there, and they've got I think it's once a week, there's a group on a Tuesday night, and it's someone comes in, it's part of the club that you can go and sit with them, sit with a member of the staff from the club that you can speak to about your issues if you have any. Doesn't have to be football related, it can be things outside the football, whether that's your family life or whether it's your job, because we were part-time at Alloa, so it might have been something to do with your job or your finance, anything at all. You can go and speak to them about. So they've had that in place for a long time. Like I said, there's a club chaplain there that comes in every training session and games, and he just floats about. He doesn't try and come for you directly. As if you're in passing, he'll ask you how you are and always ask how things are going. So Alloa have had that in place for about 4 years.
Players being able to have this release and opportunity to talk to staff dedicated to mental health is very important and is a big step in getting rid of the stigma around males' mental health in Scotland. Stephen told me about how he was approached by a fellow player who was struggling with the pressures of match days.
It was after the game once, and after the game I'm not one to rush and get changed and get up the road. I like to just get recovered properly and stuff and take your time. And so I was one of the last in the dressing room, and one of the lads came up to me and he asked, like, how do I deal with the fans on a match day? And he's a young lad, he's trying to make his way in the game. He's 10 years older than him at the time, so he's probably came to me thinking, well, he's 10 years old, he's played a lot more games than me. And he just asked the question, how do you deal with it? What do you think? Like, how do you approach each game, knowing that if things go wrong, the fans might turn on you, or like I said, it's just a small section of the fans. It's not everybody, and everybody's got their opinion and that, and we all respect that. And I just said to them that you need to obviously trust yourself, and, trust your teammates around you, and always have that positive mindset of what you feel as if you're doing is the right thing.
The biggest issue that I feel causes a lot of mental health problems amongst male footballers in the UK is the use of social media and the subsequent abuse that comes from that.
And it gives people a platform, like you said, to vent their anger. Like, look, I would say I was lucky at the peak, I suppose, of time at Dundee United, where you come in after a game and you've had a bad game. Your phone, you don't. Lads come in afterwards now, and all they have to do is open up Twitter or Facebook or whatever else, and bang.
Yeah.
They already know they've had a bad game, or maybe they thought they had a good game, or maybe they did have a good game, but there's still people that aren't happy, about a certain chance they missed or a certain decision they made or whatever, like. And people have a platform now to put that out there, which is unfortunate because, going back to, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, when after a game you went back to the pub and you had a chat with your mate at the bar and you discussed, Sean Dillon having a shy game or whatever. You went home and you discussed it at home with your son or your daughter or your wife or whatever. But now people have the platform to message you directly. So even though they don't have your phone number, they can at you on Twitter, or they can message you privately on Facebook or Instagram or whatever else, or tag you whatever way you want to put it, and let you know that they thought you were shite.
Social media plays a huge part in day-to-day life of everyone these days, and is good for so many reasons. However, the use of this to abuse people behind a screen has caused a lot of players to have mental health problems. Dunfermline Mental Health Ambassador Eddie Martin had recently ran a course all about social media.
At Dunfermline, we actually had an awareness session for the players around social media, and it was all about how the players can respond to it, how it affects their confidence, how they've got to be resilient of a player to do that and be able to bounce back. But again, the good thing is the players have the support there within the football club, and social media is growing all the time. There's that many different platforms now as well. I've probably lost count of all the different platforms that are there. You can advise and say keep off the fans forums, keep off the social medias, but it'd be very difficult, and particularly it's not so much a concern, but I think that it could highlight young players as well if they're going in and they're going to take a knock to their confidence. And I think that would be very tricky.
Alongside the work that people like Eddie Martin do within Scottish clubs to help curb the national stigma around men's mental health, I've reached out and spoken to a few charities whose aim is to help those suffering from poor mental health. I first spoke to Andy's Man Club representative Greg Munro about how the club offers a space for males to openly speak about how they're feeling.
And then, it's the thing about being Scottish as well, I think, For a long time, Scotsmen more than most British people, I think, have possibly been the stoic, got on with things and not really talked. Had a lad come along for quite a little while, and he was in his mid-40s or so. Wasn't quite sure what had went on. Just things weren't quite right after a while, and he said to the wife, "Look, I'm kind of struggling here." His wife said, "Well, go to the doctor. The doctors can help with that kind of thing." And he went to his GP. He'd be given 2 leaflets, one that was down south somewhere, and then the other one he managed to get in touch with, and they were offering help that was 8 months away. Whereas we're right there. We're right available. He was ready to give up after the first couple of leaflets, thinking that he'd given mental health a shot and hadn't really worked out for him. His wife then said, "Look, these guys are right away, and try going along to the club." And he ended up only coming for maybe 8 months, but he left at the other end feeling better, and he got around whatever he needed to get around, and things were good again.
Andy's Man Club first started back in 2016 after Luke Ambler's brother-in-law tragically passed away, and him and his mother, Elaine Roberts, wanted to start a charity to allow men to talk about their feelings and make sure that people were aware that it's okay not to be okay. Greg goes on to explain how people can get in touch with the charity.
There's andysmanclub.co.uk is just the main page. We've got an email address, info@andysmanclub is for the... if you reach out on that for an email, we'll send you to your local club. Local Facebook is the best way to do it. Because it's peer-led, the Facebook pages are also peer-led. And so if you jump on your local Facebook page, or the main one will get you that as well. They'll send you to your local page, and you'll be talking to an actual guy there who's involved, rather than some big office that some of the bigger companies might be using.
Yeah.
And they can then just help you along. You can walk in the door if you know where the place is. If you go on the andysmanclub.co.uk main page, one of the first bits you see is our locations, and it rattles through all the locations where we are. So we're fully, the doors are open. There's a guy outside every one of the clubs to let you through the doors.
Another charity that is there to support those who need help with their mental health is Samaritans. Samaritans have 19 branches that reach from the Highlands to the borders of Scotland, with around 1,000 volunteers there to help those reach out to the charity. Ex-Press and Publicity Officer of Samaritans Dunfermline, Jed Lafferty, told me about the stigma around men's mental health and also about the main aims of Samaritans. Do you think, obviously it's more topical now than it had been in the start of maybe the 2000s, but do you think there's still a stigma around mental health within males in Scotland?
Yes, there is, and young males in particular, find it difficult. There's been a couple of high-profile incidents of suicide of young footballers who didn't quite make it, but ended up unfortunately taking their own lives, and that's highlighted. It's highlighted a lot of how football clubs treat their employees as a whole, and also the players. And Dunfermline Athletic are unique in the fact that they have a mental health ambassador. The aim of Samaritans is a one-liner, really, and it is that fewer people die by suicide. And we can look at all our statistics, and we know that, sort of young to middle-aged men and women are at greater risk to suicide than others. And that makes up a big sort of demographic of the people that go to a football match. Still, maybe different in Scotland than it is in other places, but it's still sort of young middle-aged men who are at risk from suicide, and they're our target group. So it helps that we can advertise, and we can make ourselves aware, or make people aware that we're there to help people.
In Scotland during 2020, there was 805 people who sadly took their own lives, with 575 of them, being 73%, males, making males 2.6 times more likely to commit suicide. Of the 575 males, 299 of them were aged between 15 and 34, which is a scary statistic and only highlights the issue that is men feeling like they don't know or don't have anyone to speak to when they're feeling low or suicidal. Jed continued and spoke about how you can get in touch with Samaritans and get support that they offer.
We're one of 201 branches throughout the United Kingdom and the Republic of Ireland. So, we have our free phone line. We also have a very busy email system that people can contact us with.
The stigma around men's mental health has seemed to change for the better in recent years, but there's still a long way to curb the stigmatisation of men's mental health in Scotland and in the UK as a whole.